And we are speaking about the climate of fear and intimidation that it not only is happening in Colombia, but at campuses across the country. There are threats that we heard from the Secretary of State, one of the most powerful people in the country, about threatening to detain and deport students. But whether or not the Trump administration actually has the legal right to do this at all is currently being tested with the fate of a number of students detained by ICE immigration officials, the most prominent of whom are Mahmoud Khalil, Rumeysa Ozturk, and Mohsen Mahdawi. Khalil, who last month was denied release to attend the birth of his firstborn son, remains in detention in Louisiana, despite a court order to return him to New Jersey. On Wednesday, a New Jersey judge ordered the Department of Justice to produce evidence of past cases where legal migrants were deported over fears of harming U.S. foreign policy, which underpins the government's argument against Khalil and others. In a separate court decision, an appeals court ruled that Rumeysa Ozturk must be removed from Louisiana to Vermont, where she is due to have her bail hearing on Friday. Last Thursday, Columbia student Mohsen Mahdawi was released on bail from a detention facility in Vermont after his lawyers successfully overturned an attempt by Trump's to keep him detained while his case is heard. This was the incredible moment of his release.
To me, they arrested me. What's the reason? Because I raised my voice and they said no to war, yes to peace. Because I said enough is enough to President Trump and his cabinet. Yes. I am not afraid of you. Yes!
Well, yesterday I spoke with Sheza Abushi Dalal, an attorney with the Clear Project and part of the legal team for Mohsen, Mahmoud, as well as Rumeysa. I started by asking her about this speech by Mohsen on the footsteps of that courthouse that we just watched. In that moment of his release that was captured on video, there was a crowd of supporters outside. He makes that incredible statement. He says that he's not afraid of Donald Trump. You were standing right behind him as he says that. What was that moment like?
It was incredible. It was incredible. I mean, it's a real testament to what his priorities are and what this is about for him, and also to the incredible, overwhelming community that he has, and community both in Vermont and I think around the country that are just so invested in our abilities to take positions that challenge the United States government and challenge the governments allied with the United States, without risking the punishment that Mohsen and his other peers and other clients of ours are currently suffering. It was an incredible moment, and we were with him along with all of our wonderful co-counsel from a number of other organizations, and really grateful to the court for acknowledging the urgency of this matter and taking the only just step forward. And we're really hopeful that the same will follow for Rumeysa Ozturk, whose motion for release, a very similar motion, will be heard very soon. It's scheduled for Friday in the same court in front of a different judge. And Mahmoud Khalil, who's had a motion for release pending for weeks now, and is hopeful to be able to join his wife and his newborn child outside of ICE detention.
Now, one of the things about Mohsen's case is that unlike the other two and unlike others like Badr Khan, Suri Khan, he was not moved to Louisiana. There was a judge that stopped him from being shifted to Louisiana. Was that significant, do you think, in why he was the first to be able to get his release on bail?
Absolutely. I mean, I think there are a number of reasons why he's out today. And it's hard to sort of narrow down to one thing. But I think absolutely sort of a cornerstone of the government's ploy to punish in these cases has been this abduction and subsequent covert whisking away of people away from their communities, away from their home states, and to, sometimes across multiple state borders before landing in fora that are conveniently favorable to the government, like Louisiana. And then, what the government has done repeatedly is their first delay tactic is to say, because they're in Louisiana, this is the wrong court, and we shouldn't even reach the merits of their constitutional claims that they're raising in these cases because the court doesn't have the power to hear this case. And they've, of course, not succeeded. They've failed in this effort in multiple district courts around the country now, but nonetheless have used it as a strategy to extend this period of detention, which, of course, I can't understate how chilling and harmful every day, every hour of detention is for our clients and for everybody else whose liberties are at stake, really, in their detention as well.
Tell me about what Mahmoud Khalil, what Rumeysa Ozturk are going through right now. We have heard reports from Badr Kansouri's detention that there was accusations of mistreatment, that he was being denied things as basic as food to break his fast, clean clothes. What can you tell me about the condition of Mahmoud and Rumeysa?
Absolutely. I've read in horror the same reports about Dr. Souri's conditions, and in addition to all the ones that you cite, his experience of solitary confinement only sort of aggravating the punishing experience of detention. It's really horrifying. They're in different detention facilities, but I think there's a shared indescribable hardship of being in detention, of being incarcerated writ large, and stripped away from your community, and then the particular conditions of each detention facility and the hardships that come. In the case of Rumeysa Ozturk, she is currently incarcerated at a detention facility in Louisiana, and it's been very challenging for her. I think details of this have come up in the briefing in her court cases, but she suffers from asthma attacks, and those asthma attacks have only increased in frequency as well as duration and the time that it has taken her to recover from them. Her most recent asthma attacks have lasted as long as 45 minutes. And of course, for somebody who lives with that type of chronic condition, what you need is fresh air and ventilation and medical care and access to all that comes with that. And instead, she is sharing close quarters with very poor ventilation, majority of the day with more than 20 other women in a small space. She is really struggling to get access to adequate medical care, and her condition is only worsening. And that, again, only compounds the baseline punishment of detention inherent to the experience. She studies child development. She's a researcher. She is really devoted to her studies. And I think everybody from her academic community and surrounding has spoken to that fact. She's currently unable to continue those studies, unable to be surrounded by her academic community. And that is a another compounding pain of the experience. In Rumeysa's case, just by way of update, she has a motion for release that is scheduled to be heard by District of Vermont federal judge on Friday. And the hope is that the judge will move justly to have her released from detention. She's now spent 6 weeks detained for publishing an op-ed in her school paper. An op-ed that dared lend its voice to pressure the Tufts University administration to just abide by a resolution, a series of resolutions that had to do with divestment and the ongoing war in Gaza. And she sits behind bars today as punishment for that op-ed, which is a really unacceptable thing.
And let me ask you about Mahmoud Khalil. Yesterday there was a victory for your team. There was another kind of block along the way towards getting that case heard in New Jersey. But he's also somebody who is a new father. The birth of his son just days ago now happened without him being there. You are in touch, no doubt, with his wife, Noor. How is she? How is the baby? And of course, how is Mahmoud?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it feels like every day in these cases, and certainly in Mahmoud's, we wake up to news of a new delay tactic by the government, a new strategy or old strategy renewed to block the case from being heard on its merits. So the substance of the case to be heard, which I think is clear indication of the government's fear of actually contending with the very real and substantiated constitutional claims that Mahmoud and others are raising in these cases. And so, as you say, we had a victory yesterday. One of the most recent attempts at delay that the government made is seeking permission to appeal a decision on what the right court to hear his challenges was up to the Court of Appeals Third Circuit. And the Third Circuit yesterday denied hearing that appeal. They denied permission. And so the case proceeds, and still in front of the judge in New Jersey is his request to be released throughout the pendency of this litigation. And his very important constitutional claims, again, around the punishment that he's experiencing for having dared advocate for the Palestinian people and their liberation and their lives. As you note, his wife, Dr. Noor Abdullah, gave birth, I think, just under 2 weeks ago. And they had their newborn, healthy child. But unfortunately, and I really can't I can't say enough what a heartbreak this is. Mahmoud couldn't be there with his wife, Dr. Abdullah, and to witness the birth of his first child, their first child. And he hasn't yet been able to see his child, meet his child, be with his wife in the first few days of their co-parenting, so that they might do this together, so that he might experience his child, and those first few days and weeks of parenting. It is profound punishment. And I can't say that enough.
These cases, and I think in particular Mahmoud Khalil's case, has been treated by the government as something with a very high stake attached to it. They are investing a lot of effort, a lot of money into making sure that this case is successful for them, because it feels, as you mentioned, like it is embodying something much larger that is happening in the country right now. What do you think is at stake for not only these three individuals and the others that have also been detained, but generally for the larger pro-Palestine movement, for dissent in America, for free speech, and for citizenry itself?
It's as simple as this. What's at stake is the ability to dissent. It's the ability to challenge our governments, to hold them accountable to the rule of law, to international law. That's what's at stake for everybody, not just for non-citizens, for non-citizens, for visa holders, for green card holders, for citizens too. I mean, you cannot denigrate the promises and protections of the First Amendment for just one population. When you do that, you do it for all. That's how the First Amendment works. And that's what is at stake here. I think Mahmoud Khalil's case in particular, the government has said this is the blueprint. This is their blueprint on how it is and how far they can take punishing people because they dare challenge the Trump administration's policies and top line positions in the United States and abroad. And so the stakes are huge for advocates for Palestinian liberation and for folks who have been for the past nearly 2 years now protesting and lending their voices and their pens and their word and their expressions of all kinds to the Palestinian and people in Gaza opposing the genocide, right? And we're not talking about a movement of non-citizens alone. We're not talking about a small group of people who are advocating in a corner on their own. We're talking about a growing majority opinion in this country and not one that can be deported, right? And so this whole movement of people that have been fighting against the genocide in this country and against the United States's, fundamental allyship in enacting the genocide, that's at stake. But it's not going to stop there. Like I said, you can't cabin the type of assault on the First Amendment and its protections to one organizing community, activist community, to one cause, to one subset of people in this country, non-citizens. It will impact everybody.